Jeremy Corbyn, this time last year, you said the following to me: I'm not in favour of a cult of personality and I don't encourage them. How's that going?
Well, I'm doing my best with it, okay.
I mean, there's like scarves, t-shirts, hats. I mean, it seems a little bit like the Pied Piper here right now.
Yes. Well, listen, somebody raised this on the floor this morning, and I thought the reply from the platform was absolutely brilliant. They said, well, yes, I did work hard in the election, but so did everybody else. We're a party of lots of people. We're 500,000 members. We're doing well.
You don't feel a bit uncomfortable about some of this personalisation of this party on you?
I often feel deeply embarrassed by it.
Really?
Yes.
Okay.
It's not my wish, not my doing. But
okay. Obviously, there's a lot of activity and energy around the conference. Some of it unwanted. I mean, in this document, there's a fringe event advertised on page 90 where somebody yesterday sort of raised questions involving Holocaust denial. Yes or no, the Holocaust. I mean, how can the Labour Party allow that to happen at its conference?
That is absurd, and I have heard reports of this meeting. I knew nothing about the meeting. I know nothing about the organisation that put it forward. But look at it the other way. All wings united around our anti-racist rule change this morning. The Jewish Voices for Labour, newly formed organisation, and the Jewish Labour Movement both supported the rule change, and there is a lot of agreement around that. That was certainly off-stage voice there.
It does seem that the similar things do keep on happening, though. Have you got a lid on this? I mean, some have argued Labour's a nasty party again. What's going on?
I think you're reading too much the Daily Mail, if I may say so, Faisal. That's their front page this morning. This is a party of well over 500,000 members and 3 million affiliated members. We're a party that is active in all parts of the country and in all communities. We've got proposals on education, proposals on economy, proposals on social care. There's a whole lot of stuff coming out that's very strong and very good. This is a party of communities all around the country, all communities.
Now, your big policy announcement so far has been this private finance initiative crackdown, what you call the scandal. This was your party's scandal, was it not?
The first PFIs were done under John Major's Conservative government. No, you're interrupting me, and I don't want to interrupt you. We're a nice party, you see. We're not nasty at all. Anyway, let me explain. Yes, the government under Tony Blair did go heavily down the road of PFIs. Some of us expressed very profound concerns about that at the time, because essentially what a PFI does is hands over design, build and administration of a school or a hospital to a private company, and the payment rates on this are very high. Most are tapered, so they start low, go high and finish low. We're now at the highest rate of repayment. Some repayments are working out like 15% of capital, and so what we've said is recognise that these are a public debt because they're for schools and hospitals, recognise that this is a debt we've all got to pay. Let's lower the repayment costs by swapping the PFI essentially for government bonds where the interest rate will be sort of 2-3%.
So you've apologised for the misdeeds of your predecessors before. You're going to apologise for what Tony Blair and Gordon Brown did in creating this scandal?
Well, they went down the PFI road because they wanted to build schools and hospitals very quickly. I understand that. I fully understand that. I want to build schools and hospitals very quickly. What I thought was wrong was not using the traditional power of government borrowing, which would be through a bond issue, government bonds in order to pay for it. Instead, they went down what is in effect a semi-privatisation route of bringing the private sector into run. And you talk to schools and you talk to hospitals, at an administrative level, it's crazy. You want to replace something in a school, you have to go to a facilities company, whereas in the past you'd have asked the school keeper to fix it.
So likewise with the nationalisations that were confirmed yesterday by John McDonnell, you're going to expropriate the share capital of the private sector. You're going to pay them less than the market rate. What gives you the right to do that?
Hang on, where have we ever said that?
Well, the shares for the nationalised utilities, for example, that you intend to bring into the public sector, you're not going to pay the share price for them.
There is a precedent for this where you take into account the level of public investment in them. But in the case of the water industry, what's happened is it was privatised largely under Margaret Thatcher. That privatisation has led to the sale of a lot of public, what were formerly public assets. It's led to very high water charges, and most of those water companies are actually owned by hedge funds, are often overseas companies. I think our water industry and the environmental management that goes with it is and should be a public ownership issue.
But where does the logic of this stop? You've got the utilities. Would you go into mobile phone companies? Would you go into car factories?
No. We're quite specific, absolutely specific, on train operating companies when the franchises expire, on Royal Mail, and on the water industry.
When you put it all together and you add in John McDonnell's promises to electrify every rail line from here to Cornwall to Scotland, spraying money around like confetti, where's the money going to come from for a party that you admit made big mistakes on public borrowing in the PFI?
It will be a combination of tax rises in corporate taxation and the very wealthiest in taxation, and a combination of government borrowing. But what do you get from it? You get investment in the rail industry, which has got to happen anyway. If you want to economically regenerate the far southwest, the northeast or northwest, part of it, only part of it is rail investment. This government promised to do much the same and then cancelled it all straight after the election.
But the issue is that, there are worries, aren't there? And there are worries not just articulated by the city or big business. Your own Chancellor, Shadow Chancellor, said yesterday that he's making plans to defend against the run, scenario plans against a run on the pound.
I think we have to look at all the issues that any government faces, and if you ask the Chancellor of the Exchequer and the Treasury what their scenario planning is, I'm sure it is also including variations in the exchange rate, because clearly exchange rate variations make a massive difference to your ability to export and obviously the price of importing these. So the pound goes down, pay more for imports and so on.
This is something different. This is saying that Labour policies could incite a lack of confidence in the country, the economy and the Exchequer.
I think what he's doing is saying we'd look at all scenarios that may affect a Labour government coming in. I have read books about the achievements of the 64 to 70 Labour government, but quite interesting book by Clive Ponting, who was a senior civil servant at the time, who later resigned, was about the issues of exchange rate and the problems that caused to that government at that time. It's worth thinking these things through. Surely that's what in opposition a serious party wanting to go into government should do. Look at all the possibilities and all the eventualities. Right. Is there anything wrong in that?
No, but then there'd be nothing wrong with explaining some of your Brexit red lines as well, which is the biggest decision facing us in the next few months. You want to be Prime Minister in charge of those negotiations. We know what the stock answer is. We know that a certain degree of vagueness has benefited your party politically. But tell us what your red lines are. We know what the Prime Minister's are. What are yours on the single market? We're going to leave the single market, but could we rejoin the EEA?
What we've said is that we want to make sure there is a tariff-free access to the single market.
But you don't rule out that we could rejoin the EEA. I know you're not aiming for it, but we could.
Listen, we're looking at all of that, but the point is there was a referendum last year that came to a decision. There is a need to protect jobs, crucially, and there's a need not to go down what seems to be the Boris Johnson, David Davis route of a sort of lower tax type economy on the shores of Europe. I think we need an investment-led economy, and we absolutely must have a tariff-free trade access to European markets to strengthen our industrial base.
Mayor of London has just said that it's a possible scenario that the next Labour manifesto, if the Brexit negotiations go badly, could include a referendum on the exit deal.
We're not planning any referendum. Sadiq is obviously thinking through all scenarios and possibilities. He represents a city that's overwhelmingly voted for Remain. As you know, the referendum produced a split decision across the whole country, but there was a majority to leave. We think that our strategy of trade access with Europe, guaranteeing the rights of EU nationals and protecting those rights and conditions that we've got from European membership should continue.
Is no Brexit better than a bad Brexit?
Listen, a bad Brexit would be a really bad idea, a sort of cliff edge in March 2019. I think even the Prime Minister has come around to that way of thinking, and she's now accepted the view that we've put forward for some time, that there ought to be a transition period as long as necessary. And indeed, one has to ask a question of the government, what on earth they've been doing for the last 15 months?